Welcome back to Library-ish, brought to you by the Butte County Library. I'm Butte County Librarian Traci.
I'm Library Assistant January.
Today we're so excited to be digging into a topic that stirs up strong feelings, big ideas, and even the occasional controversy: young adult literature. YA books aren't for teens, if you hadn't noticed. In fact, a huge percentage of YA readers are adults. And we're going to explore why this genre resonates so widely. We'll take a journey from the classics like Catcher in the Rye, The Outsiders, Nancy Drew, The Hardy Boys. And we're going to also discuss the bold, diverse titles that are topping today's bestseller lists and dominating the big screen.
We'll also talk about how YA differs from new adult. They're two different genres. The newer genre that has its own unique appeal would be new adult, whereas the other one is YA. And let's not forget the series that started in YA but grew up with their readers, moving into more mature themes along the way. But here's the part that really gets people talking. YA books and some of the most frequently challenged and banned books out there. Why does this genre spark so much controversy? Join us as we dive into the world of YA literature, where coming-of-age stories meet cultural moments, sometimes becoming cultural flashpoints. Let's get started.
All right, so let's start out with what exactly is YA fiction?
Well, YA literature, YA fiction,
That's true. It's not just fiction. It's also nonfiction. It's a whole...
Oh, yeah. There's graphic novels. There's manga. There's nonfiction. There's fiction.
It's really more of a demographic.
It is, very much. And it's basically classified as books that have main characters, anything like that, that are aged about 13 or 14 years old up to about 18, I think is the cap, 17 or 18 years old. They mainly happen in that adolescence where they're coming of age. They mainly happen in that high school space where kids are kind of learning as they go. Kids are discovering who they are. They're discovering what's important to them. They're going through life, and these books are aimed at those kids.
Right. And so the demographic that sort of the publishers are aiming for is probably like 12 to 18. And so you have protagonists that are around 15 to 18.
Well, see, and the nice thing about, in my opinion, the nice thing about YA is that some books are aiming to the higher, because when you think of 12 to 18, that's a lot of, different abilities within that teeny tiny age frame. You've got 12-year-olds that are basically in middle school. And then you've got 18-year-olds that are like, peace, I'm out, and they're out of high school. They're going on to adulthood, and within that teeny tiny time frame, a lot is happening. Absolutely. And so you've got some YA books that are addressing the younger side of it, that are very tame, that are very fun, and then you've got some YA books that are a bit more serious, and they're aiming at the older kids. And it varies within YA.
Right. So it can be, there are different sort of classifications. You've got your sort of middle age sort of readers and fiction and nonfiction. Then you have young adult, and then you have new adult, which is sort of a new genre, a new audience marker that we'll get into as we discuss things. What purpose does YA serve? Why do we need YA?
Well, you really got to look at who's reading YA then, because when you talk about books, why do we need books? You're not talking about the books themselves. You're talking about the effect it has on the readers. You're talking about what are we as people getting out of these books. So if you look at the actual demographic YA is meant for, which are these kids that are 13, 14, 15, 16 years old, what are they going through in their lives? What are they dealing with in their lives? And how do these books assist them? You've got fiction, and then you've got nonfiction. When you ask kids, what's fiction? And the easiest way to explain that is a little alliteration and saying, fiction is fake. Yes. But another way to look at fiction, because I used to be a teacher, so there's lots of ways to learn this. Another way to look at fiction is learning through your imagination. It's not like in 1582, this blah, 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 blah. It's this happened and I'm going to read about it, and it's fiction, it's not real, it's fake, but I'm still learning. And I'm learning with my imagination. And there are certain books that take these certain topics and they kind of teach them subtly. Like it's almost hidden the way they teach it. Books like Angie Thomas's The Hate You Give, it deals with racism, but on a very, very hidden thing where it's not coming out and saying, this is bad, don't do this.
Right, or providing definitions, being a very literal thing. It's basically using storytelling
Yes.
to explore these topics.
To learn through your imagination, to read this. And you're following this particular character, this protagonist, Star. You're following her through this journey and you're experiencing what she's experiencing.
Right.
So you're learning about these situations without actually having to live them.
Right.
Now, there are many kids all over the United States that actually deal with this on a face-to-face basis. And when they read this kind of book, it makes them feel, wow, I'm not alone.
Right. They see themselves.
They see themselves in it and they see, I'm not alone. This is someone else dealing with something that I have dealt with. And there's a lot of YA books that deal with that heavy content. Like Speak is about someone dealing with sexual assault.
Well, and that's sort of always been the sort of the history of YA, which it goes back very far, which like you've done some reading about and everything, sort of has dealt with from its inception, helping kids cope with difficult things that they may be going through in their life, right?
So, and you know how open teenagers are to talking to their parents, right?
Yeah.
No, not at all. Yeah, I'm sorry. I have a 12-year-old and we have a very, very close relationship, my daughter and I, but I know that she's not telling me everything. I know that there are things that she's going to be going through, very serious things that she's not going to feel comfortable talking to me about. And for those particular readers, YA is an escape.
Right.
YA is, there's someone that understands what I'm going through. There's this character, even though it's a fictional character, this character understands me.
Right.
I am seen here.
And that's so important too for getting through difficult situations, is not feeling isolated, not feeling sort of singled out, but feeling as though there's a point of connection somewhere. That can be really important for someone going through something.
Oh my goodness, yes. I am not alone.
Yeah.
Feeling that I am not alone. There's someone else that understands me. There's books like, you're familiar with Go Ask Alice, that deals with drug abuse.
Exactly.
How many teens are you going to have that come up to you and be like, hey, I'm struggling with drug abuse? If you've got a teen that does that, well done. But the majority of them are just searching for a more in the storm. You know, they're searching for some connection. And these books provide that for those teens.
Right.
Then there's a lot of fantasy. There's a lot of, because within the YA, it's not subcategorized, you know, like, because within YA, it's all kind of just YA. And it's all kind of just mixed in there, and it can go anywhere within that section.
Right.
It can go from very tame to very not tame. It can go from space to castles to, you know, all over the place.
And we do that because it's about browsability. We want people to go in there and look and find what they're looking for, and not necessarily, they like science fiction, be stuck in the science fiction. Sure, that's great to do, where you could read from A to Z through a particular genre that you like. But if you're somebody that already appreciates a genre, you're probably already going to know the authors you're looking for. So you'll be able to find those regardless. But if you're somebody that doesn't know, we do that with the adult section too. We tend not to genreify our fiction section. It tends to be, apart from matterings of sci-fi, Western, and mystery, we pretty much, the genres are...
The only separation we have is mystery and then Western and so on and so forth. But when it comes to YA, it's all kind of mixed together. And I have, you know, moms bringing over their kids and being like, we're looking to give YA a shot. Show us where your most tame YA is.
Yeah.
And if you don't read YA, that's a very hard question to answer. You're, you know, you're pulling up the computer, you're pulling up Goodreads, and you're like, what does this have in it?
Yeah. There are some libraries that have their fiction sections for younger readers delineated by Lexile levels or things like that, but we don't do that here.
No.
And I really, it's, if you think about it, I mean, there are varying opinions. Everybody's got their own opinion, but it is a good thing because it lets kids find their own sort of level of reading through exploring.
Right.
It's not something that you can force on someone and go, well, this should be your level, So you should be reading this level and you should enjoy it.
No,
Those two things don't
See,
go together.
I was a teacher for a handful of years, and parents want their kids to read. They do. They want them to learn to read early.
Sure.
They want their third grader reading at a college level. That they always want that stuff. But you have to realize there's two parts when you teach someone how to read. There's the part of the mechanics. There's the part of how you read. Phonics, phoneme, so on and so forth. But the other bigger part, in my opinion, the bigger part of it is teaching a love for reading. You want to inspire a love for books. You want someone to self-identify as a reader, and forcing stuff on them. This is your level. You should read it. I'm so sorry. That's not going to encourage anyone to. Have you ever loved anything that someone shoved at you? It's good for you. Do this.
Well, does anybody enjoy taking a test?
No.
So why would you turn activity that should be extremely pleasurable into a test?
Right.
It's just not.
That's why it always bugs me when schools force reading upon children. There are some very good books that schools are like, this is so good, we'll have all the kids read it. Because the moment a teacher came up to me as a kid and says, this is your book, I demand that you read it, I'm like, well, I can go read that. There's a lot of books that I just chose not to read because I was being told to do so. You have to have the inspiration to do so. And for us, not marking the stuff on the YA and encouraging, open exploration, it's to help that love for reading. It's to help inspire that love for reading, because it does have to be inspired. You can't teach it. You can't demand it. It has to be something inspired inside the reader. And that's when we don't do that stuff, that's kind of what we're looking for.
And that does sort of bring up the differences between like the library environment and the school environment, where we sort of encourage exploration rather than a school, which is really like there to measure performance. Rightfully so, because we want to be sure that if a child is falling behind in certain levels, that they're able to get support to be able to get up to where they have potential to be. Whereas with a library, we're not here to do that. We're really here to provide the support so they can pursue what they're interested in.
See, that whole assessing and things like that, that's not my monkeys, not my circus.
Right.
That is not our job. We are not there to in the least bit. We are here for a love of reading, for people that love to read. That's who we want to come in. That's what we want to inspire that.
As often happens, something it becomes a hit within the genre, and then
the rollout,
just like Hunger Games, and then there's
Divergent.
all the Divergent, and that's just
a big boom for the YA industry was dystopian novels.
That has been the bread and butter, in fact, of the top grossing movies. It's Hunger Games, dystopian fantasy, and Twilight.
Dangerous Minds, that one came after that as well. There's so many, and they involve the main character fighting against a government or their social structure, and rebelling against it. And there's been so many. The problem being now that there's so many, the YA section is kind of eating itself alive. Everything's exactly the same when it comes to the dystopian ones. There's a new one out right now called Powerless. And that one, if you guys haven't tried it, it's basically Hunger Games mixed with another book called Red Queen, where all the people have different powers.
I was just watching Book Talk talking about the plagiarism accusations that are going on right now.
Oh my goodness. And there's a lot of people on Book Talk that really love it. They're like, this is lovely. I love it. It's perfect. You want a good book? Read Powerless. And I tried it, and I'm like, I have the biggest feeling of deja vu right now, and I just can't get over it. It's just, there's a lot of it that I'm like, it's exactly the same.
Yeah. And Book Talk is a huge driver right now in fiction in general, but also with YA fiction. I mean, pretty much, I was watching about Colleen Hoover, some
new adult.
Well, yeah, there you go. And about how basically her whole growth on the scene can be practically attributed to Book Talk, although now she's privated her account because things have gotten complicated.
She was super smart during the pandemic. During the pandemic, she released and said, hey, you guys are all stuck at home. Have my books for free.
Well, she couldn't get a publisher.
Oh,
She
I
couldn't
didn't
get a
realize that one.
publisher, so she
Mhm.
had to self-publish.
And she gave them away for free.
And she put herself on TikTok and started doing things like that. And then that's how she started the
Now we can't
momentum.
keep her in. Now she's got
And they
holds
call
that are.
themselves the cohort.
Do they? I did not know that.
Talkers, her book talkers.
I didn't know they had a
whatever.
nickname. That's fun.
Yeah, the cohort. That's pretty much how she just sort of completely propelled her career, was through book talk. It has a huge
Oh my
influence.
goodness.
And again, this is something that like creeps also into adult fiction. It's also huge. Book talk is also huge for adults, but for teens,
Oh, it's so big.
yeah.
And
And the
it's-
drama drives it. You know, there's no such thing as bad publicity, and there's a lot of drama in the book talk community. A lot of drama in YA, a lot of
Yeah.
accusations of plagiarism. And it fuels the market because then people want to read
Oh yeah.
because they want to.
I want to know, like when it came to Black Witch, I'm like, well, what's going on? Why all the drama? I want to see. I want to be a part of the drama. You know, get my bucket of popcorn and just be like, oh, this is so neat. But yeah, we can't keep her in the library anymore because there's such long lists of her.
And that's, like you say, that's new adult,
Mhm.
which that's sort of the transitional period after YA, whereas YA kind of the protagonists go up to 18. The protagonists in new adult are usually somewhere up in their early 20s. And the issues that those protagonists deal with tend to be getting the first job, moving away from home, navigating first relationships, sort of that young, early adult sort of obstacles that you face.
It is.
A little different than what you're facing in high school. You know, going to college is more of a new adult
I think
thing,
it's very apt to call it a second adolescence because
well,
you're
it is
not
now for sure.
Oh,
back in my day, you know, you were
Walking a mile through the snow
you
barefoot.
were already, you know, going on your second child or whatever. Like you were firmly entrenched as adults, but you know, because people are going to college and getting bachelor's degrees as a culture, because we're doing that now, there's so many different things. It's completely pushed adolescence further out for people, whereas, you know, for a lot of people my age, you barely stayed home until you were 18. You know, a lot of people were out by 14, you know, so
now we're living with our folks longer.
And, you know, there's economic drivers and things like that too, but also just the fact that you know, there's this expectation. College years are kind of an extension of the high school years, so it's a bit of a protracted adolescence.
New adult is about 18, 19 or so much, up to your early 20s, about the time that most people would be, you know, growing up, graduating college, you know, having their frontal lobe solidify, you know, all that fun stuff.
Well, and what's nice about, I mean, I am of two minds really about the genre, because it is nice because it gives bookstores and libraries the opportunity to have books that are more maturely themed and have them be removed from the young adult area for book challenges. It makes things a little less complicated. But there is an issue, like if you're, you know, as long as you're pulling kids out of YA a little bit, I believe in like helping chaperone them into the adult section so that they can start reading grown people books and feel like that belongs to them.
Sometime.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's this idea that once they're done with high school, they don't have to read again. And you know, and also that border that, like, you don't cross that line into the adult section. And that's the thing about moving books from, like, Brave New World. All the books that are on the teen reading list, Great Gatsby, Catcher in the Rye, moving them out of adult sections into teen sections. I'm personally, in my opinion, not a big fan, because I like to see kids feeling invited to get those books from the adult section, feeling welcomed, and then maybe when they're looking for personal reading material, feeling like they already have a stake in that territory, as opposed to putting everything that they need over in YA,
You know,
and then they never have to leave the nest.
Yeah,
I mean, we certainly don't like to do that with anything else. Why would we do it with our literature?
I feel that, yeah, I agree. We should have an inviting adult section. They should be invited to stick their little toesy woesies out and say, what is it like over here? Because eventually they're going to be there. You know, why not encourage it?
Well, and here's the thing. There's adult literature, there's all kinds. Just like with YA, we've talked about, like, thematically. You can get things that are tame, you can get things that are spicy. And
Mhm.
it's the same with adult literature. You can get things that are tame, you can get things that are spicy. The thing
Mhm.
about developing discernment is you have to explore. And if you explore and you decide you don't like spicy, then you
Mhm.
don't get the spicy.
Mhm. Then you
But
just
if
kind of get
you,
back down
yeah,
there.
but
Mhm.
if you don't get that opportunity to explore, then you really don't know what you like.
Mhm.
And I think developing the discernment for literature, like food or anything else, is
Mhm.
extremely important. And that's also what creates a lifetime reader, is knowing what you like, knowing I don't want to read that spicy stuff, knowing, oh, I want to read this, more weighty. That's the only reason I know that I like nonfiction so much, is because I was permitted
Mhm.
by my mother to go into nonfiction from the time I could toddle.
Mhm.
And so that's what a
Oh
person
yeah.
does. If you're allowed to develop the discernment, then you choose what you like. But just restricting somebody, you're not
Yeah,
necessarily
and you're not
developing the
encouraging
discernment.
that love for reading. You're
Yeah.
not in the least
No.
bit. You got to give them freedom to find what they like, and I'm a mood reader.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll want a mystery, and sometimes I want a thriller. But it's a fun read, and that's why a lot of millennials, which I can speak from experience because I am a millennial, like to read these, because you don't have to concentrate. You don't have to be like, okay, context
Mhm.
clues. What does this author mean? What are the motifs?
Mhm.
What's the analogy he's going for? What is the message he's trying to send me?
Mhm.
I will read this and I will be smarter. No, it's a fun ride. You
Mhm.
don't go into something like Daughter of the Pirate King and think, I will be a better person after I finish this book. You do it for the fun escapism of
Mhm.
it. You do it for the adventure that it is.
Mhm.
You do it for the just to get away from reality for the while and
So
relax.
saying that, then how do we think that transition of going from YA as being a genre or a area of publishing that helps people deal with transitions in their life to just the escapism?
Well, it depends on the reader, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
For those of us that are already grown,
Mm-hmm.
it's escapism. It's
Mm-hmm.
nostalgia.
Do you think that maybe that drive toward marketing the YA books toward older readers has sort of made the fantasy aspect
Oh, I'm sure
more
it has.
prominent,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to reading a book because you're trying to identify something of yourself in it?
Yeah, see, when you're my age, and I mean, you can read these books to identify something of yourself, but
Well,
it
well,
is,
that's fiction.
yeah,
That's what you're looking
100%.
for when you read fiction,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what genre it is. You're always looking for,
Mm-hmm.
you
Learning through
know,
imagination.
yes.
That is our theme. Learning through imagination.
Indeed.
No, it's a lot of older readers, millennials and so on and so
Mhm.
forth. When we do read YA fiction, it is for relaxation and nostalgia and stuff like
Mhm.
that. Now, the younger ones that are reading it, they are on some subconscious level
Mhm.
getting things out of it.
Mhm.
Oh, this is someone that relates to me, like we talked about earlier,
Right.
and things along those lines. And those, what I say this like, oh, it's low readability, it's fine, or high readability. But a lot of these books are really written well. I mean,
Mhm.
it's got motifs, it's got different, they make you think of things differently,
Mhm.
but it's just aimed a little younger.
Mhm.
And we do have over at the Butte County Library, we have book club in a boxes. If you're ever curious about YA and want to get together with a bunch of friends, we do have YA books that can be ordered with our book club in a box. You would just go online and order a set with your library card, and you get like a little set of books that you and your friends can read and then discuss. And if you want to kind of just crack the door of YA, but you don't really want to step in it yet, with some friends, we could do that. And we do have the Libby that you don't have to tell anybody, because for a lot of millennials, reading YA is kind of embarrassing. Don't know why. And you can always get Libby books.
And here's the thing: if you don't use ebooks, a lot of people have a prejudice against using ebooks. Look, we all love the paper book. We all love it. It's the best thing.
Smells lovely.
It's awesome. We love holding it. It's a different experience. But there is something to be said for having an ebook. By the way, Libby also has audiobooks, which can be a supplement to your paper
Mm-hmm.
books or whatever. There is something just to be able to access a book when you're in the mood. You talk about mood
Oh
reading.
yeah.
When you're in the mood to be able to want to read something and it's available as an ebook. It's just that we also have a platform called Palace that's accessible. It's a different software from Libby, and it gives you access to libraries from across the state of California and their digital ebook collections. So very often, if a book isn't available through Libby, if you log into a Palace account with your library account, you can access that book. It would just be through a different library's collection. It's a consortium product. It's great. So I highly recommend Palace too.
No, and we also have so one of the first YA books written back in World War II, 1942, was The 17th Summer. And I'm looking at that. I'm like, that sounds neat. I kind of want to read that. And I go, and we don't have it. We don't have it on Libby, and we don't have it a physical book in the library. But we were just approved for a grant called the ZIP grant. And the ZIP grant, what they do is you'll put ZIP program. Thank you. So what you would do is you put a purchase suggestion in on your library account, and the person in charge of the program would go through these. And if it's not a new book, because we can't do it with new books, there's a chance that it could be ordered and shipped from Amazon directly to your house.
And the criteria is listed on the library's website. And our wonderful tech services person, Crystal, does the ordering. And
she's amazing.
We could not do
we couldn't do so many things without her.
But if your book that you're interested, you put in a purchase suggestion on your account, and if it meets the criteria, again, which is all available on our website, we're more than happy to order that book for you and have it shipped to your home. So what about the Hunger Games of Twilight being 8 of the top 20 box office films of the last ever?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, you know what? It's deserved. Those books in particular, they inspired a generation of readers. You know, I know my friends, and if I ask them, you know, what's your favorite? I've got one friend in particular. What's your favorite book? Hunger Games. Hands down, because it's the book that inspired me to be a reader. Right. Everybody has that one book that kind of opens their eyes and says, oh my gosh, this is fun. I like doing this. I'm a reader. That is what I associate as. I am a reader, and everybody needs that one book. You know, for my sister, it was Holes, you know, which is a fun book. I love it. I read it to my daughter. She loves it. But that's Jay, juvenile. You know, for other people, it was Twilight. That was the book that kind of opened their eyes to, this is fun. Yeah. I like doing this. I'm a reader. And for many, many people, the Hunger Games do the same thing. Well, you've got people in Hollywood that are like, oh, wow, look at these people. This looks like money. That look green to you?
Exactly it. I mean, publishers already know how to monetize, you know, these genres by doing the multiple books. So you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. You know, you got to read them all.
It's like Pokemon.
And then they just sort of translated that. That's why 8 out of 20 of the top grossing films, 2 of them, one is The Hunger Games, one is Twilight. But they're 8 movies. That's because they're spread across, you know, the stories, this many books spread across this many films. You know, the last chapter of the Hunger Games movies is 2 movies.
Well, it's because they stuck so closely to the books, and that really is the key.
Well, and it's also because they're like, how can we get blood out of this stone?
Right.
I mean, there's that too. The fact that they did a good job is credit to the production team.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, let's face it, the reason why it got greenlit at all is because of the monetary potential.
But see, you've got like Cassandra Clare. Cassandra Clare wrote the Shadowhunter series. I've read the majority of, there's a lot of books. I've read the majority of them. And some are good, some are bad. But it's a fun world that she's created. And they did make a movie out of it. The movie did not stick to the book at all. So where we're all going and we're sitting in there and we're like, this is going to be so fun. We're excited to see our favorite book on the big screen. And it just...
That's also been happening a lot lately.
Yeah, I mean, just producers are like, no, this will be better.
I mean, even The Handmaid's Tale, they introduced a lot of subplots and so forth. They had nothing.
I know. They always feel they can do it better than the original author. And it's just like, well, you have this devoted group that loves what was originally produced. And when you go off script and you change all of this, those people are like, well, that was awful.
Yeah. Well, that's when the production team does a poor job of monetizing what it really is gold. You know, really, it's a softball. It's so easy. Just it's all there. Just get somebody to write a shortened version.
You had one job.
Yeah, exactly. exactly. But speaking of The Handmaid's Tale, we did mention we were going to talk about why YA keeps getting banned. A lot of people would be surprised to know that The Handmaid's Tale is a
YA.
book that is considered YA fiction. And that is one of the most banned books ever written.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And why do you think, as a reader, that so often YA gets banned?
Well, YA can be banned for a number of reasons. People are always really touchy. And one of the main reasons, see, I haven't read Handmaid's Tale, but I have read another book that has banned, I've talked about this so often, The Hate You Give. Is often one of the most banned books.
Yeah, and it certainly is the most challenged book.
It is, 100%.
In the last year or two.
And Angie Thomas is such an amazing author. She's given this book for free away to high schools, away to mainly around Mississippi because that's her home state. And she does all this stuff for free, and her book gets banned. And I remember she was talking on an interview, and her book, for one of the main reasons, was the language. She liberally sprinkles the F word in the dialogue of the teens. Anytime the teens are talking to each other, they're saying the F word. And they said, they'd ask her, they're like, why did you put that in there so much? I mean, why you've gotten banned? You've gotten your book banned because of this language. Why not just leave it out? And she looks at them and she's like, y'all ever listen to your kids talk? When they talk to each other, this is the language they use. You can pretend they don't, but they do. And I'm not writing this book for you. I'm writing this book for them. And I want to reach them with this story. So I'm going to use that language. My characters are going to use that. It's not like she's up there and on the podium saying F this and F that. It's the characters.
That's it. That's fiction.
Because that's the kids are going to relate to that because the kids are using their own language.
Well, and I think that's one of the problems too, is that people have their own agendas. They want to control what other people do. And they will project certain things onto fiction. They want to infantilize young people. They forget what their youth was like. Or maybe they remember a little too much. Excuse me. Maybe they remember a little too much about what their youth was like.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, again, I think that readers need to find their own best experiences. And I think that, like, whether it's To Kill a Mockingbird or it's The Handmaid's Tale or it's The Hate You Give, parents are capable of making those decisions on their own with, working with their children, monitoring what they're reading, being plugged in as much as it can be possible with a teen, which I know it can be difficult, but being as plugged in as possible, that's an excellent place to start in terms of monitoring what's being read. But to try to dictate to a community what belongs on a shelf or not, and I think that's where
Here's the funny thing when you ban books, because you feel that your precious little ones are not quite ready for the content in those books. Did you get your teen a cell phone? I promise you, everything on that cell phone is worse than the stuff they're going to read in books.
Well, and also, what a great way to publicize the book. I was talking earlier about Book Talk and how I wonder all the controversies, all the accusations of plagiarism, a lot of that is generated publicity. Yeah, I would imagine that probably 7 out of 10 of any of those accusations are done between friends in the publishing business that are like, you took my stuff. And it's like, just because it gets eyeballs. And that's what everything is about
now. It's nice to think that grown-ups in that big of, industry are that petty.
Of course. But also literally like just creating a tempest in a teapot to get attention. And I think the thing about banning a book is if you really want to make sure that people hear about it, it's what they call the Barbara Streisand effect, which is essentially, you're trying to keep something under wraps. Somebody mentions it and you point out that they've mentioned it.
Yeah.
That's the greatest way for people to go, what now? Huh? What? Oh, what's that?
Yeah.
You want to incite curiosity, point to something, and a ban is a point to something.
This is
and it's
true.
like if you really don't want someone to read something, ignore it.
Yeah.
And it will go away. The amount of media that is produced in our modern day and age, it is an avalanche. It is impossible to keep up.
Oh, yeah.
One of our future episodes is going to be about what is a library. And so I've mentioned it before in a past episode, which you can click on the link to watch if you're on YouTube's. I'll put the link in there. That people think that libraries are warehouses for books. And the fact is, we couldn't be. It's impossible. The amount of books that are published every year, the amount of media, movies, it is impossible to warehouse everything that is created. And if you really just want something to go away, you just act like it wasn't there in the first place.
What is it that they say? All publicity is good publicity?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. That's how the Black Witch was with me. I'm like, look at all these negative reviews. They're all upset about the content. I want to know what's going on.
I mean, that is the typical reaction. And I just think that, like, that's one of the main issues. It's like, I understand absolutely being concerned about the content of a piece of media, but then the thing to do is to just move on and not partake of it yourself. And yeah. Anyway, so this has been a fun episode. We hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If you have any like comments or questions about YA literature or whatever, please send them to us. Our contact information is
and come into the libraries. Come in and check out the YA section. You know, even if you're older than a teen, you're not allowed to sit and read in the YA section. We keep that reserved just for the teens, and it's a little weird to have a grown-up there sitting and reading. But you're allowed to come in and like peruse and be like, I will check out this and take it home. I will check out this and take it home. You don't need to read there, but you can pick out your things and go home and read them. You know, don't be embarrassed to check out YA. Fun fact, a lot of us read it.
That's not to say that if you're in there with your teens that we're going to kick you out.
Oh no,
grown-ups with teens there, you're more than happy. We're more than happy to have you hanging out in the section. It's just that, like, if you're one of those grown folk that read YA and you come to the library, you can't sit there. But you could sit anywhere else in our library and read your fabulous book that you have found.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Check it out. It's a lot of fun. Literally, check it out.
Absolutely. So come and visit us. And thank you very much for joining us today. And we hope to talk to you next time. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Okay, we ready to go?